Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I want to welcome everyone to another episode of Blue TV. We're here Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern, and excited to be here for another fabulous week with everyone out here in the audience. So let's kick this off first. I don't know where everyone is located that is there in the audience today. So be sure to leave us a message below as to where you are chiming in from. I'm here in Houston, Texas, where it is actually, can't see where my temperature gauge is. It is officially 69 degrees, which is much warmer than what it has been. Super excited about that. Beautiful skies. So I'm hoping it warms up. I think it actually will warm up to like 82, which was much warmer than it's been. So I'm excited for a little glimpse of warm weather again. That being said, if you were here last week in the audience, if you attempted to be here last week in the audience, or if you were on team replay, you saw a little bit of a wobbly moment, we'll say, because of the time change difference and our team that helps us put the LinkedIn lives together. And you will probably have seen that it said one thing, that we were starting at one time and we actually started at another. So today we are here on time at the right time and the right place, because you all know it. I think that it is so very cool, even today, 5 years after the pandemic, that we can all come together in one place at one time and have amazing conversation. So drop us a note again and let us know where you are tuning in from today. I want to welcome everyone for being here and joining us on our session. Melanie is joining us from the Philippines. Super excited to have you, Melanie. Before we kick off the topic though, I do want to recognize our sponsors for this show. Even though you can't see it, Cellivators is there. So I want to kick it off with Cellivators, all things sales related. So you have any questions as it relates to how to inject the human or inject the human back into the sales process. If you want to learn how to adopt AI strategies within your sales today, that is all things Cellivators, coaching, consulting, and fractional leadership. Market Me More specializes in all things marketing. Their area of expertise or their go-to space is all things related to conferences or lives, just getting on stage, whether through a live stream, a podcast, or physically standing in front of an audience. It doesn't matter. So looking for things not just to support you while you are actually executing on that live podcast or on the stage, but all things in prep for marketing materials, one pagers, product. It doesn't matter. Market Me More is your go-to for that. And if you are looking to make an impact, or you want to leverage people who are impacting the world today, go to Top Voices Unite to engage there. So I want to thank our partners for joining us or sponsoring us and being a part of this amazing conversation that we have weekly. As you all know, we have both guests. As you saw last week, we had Nikki on here. We had a guest planned for next week, but I am going to have to cancel next week. So stay tuned for more information regarding that. Sometimes we have amazing guests like Nikki or Jenny that's coming on board in the coming weeks. And sometimes you just get me solo, Denise, Martha Bachman, right? But nonetheless, whether we have a guest or not, the topic always is centered around how do we elevate what we're doing here on LinkedIn? We're all here for a reason, and it's usually we're selling something. It could be a product, it could be a service, it could be our thought leadership, our brand. Our community, it doesn't really matter, but we're all here to sell something. How do we do that in a way that brings us more inbound leads? How do we leverage LinkedIn so that we can get our message out sell our solution and bring more inbound leads. I want to welcome Jose. Jose is watching live as usual. He says, thanks for being out there. Super excited to have you. And so the point is for us, we hear those of us, whether again, it's just me or our guests, are all members of this club where we have established ourselves as top voices here on LinkedIn. And we have leveraged some of these same tips and tricks that we talk about here. We've had to overcome some of the challenges that we talk about in these episodes. We have had to implement strategies that solve to some of the discussion topics here. And so we want to share that so that you too in the audience, that we can all together elevate what we're doing so that we can get a better return on our investment. And our investment as it pertains to LinkedIn is our time. So we've really been talking about a lot of different topics, but they've been slowly percolating to really this particular topic or theme that we're going to talk about today, right? If you think about our posts, we've talked about commenting content, we've talked about silent listeners or followers, right? How to engage with individuals, right? But now let's talk about the power of the post. We tend to think we write a post, we let it go, we come back the next day, we write another post, we let it go. And that really, our posts don't really together mean anything. It's just every day we come back and we try to put out content that resonates, right? What we don't understand, or what most of us don't understand, is the power of just one post. That every post doesn't mean you have to start from zero. It doesn't mean that every day is a new day. Yes, every day is a new day. That's not the point. But every post is a new post. That is true too. But there is this concept that I think we forget as creators, the power or the impact that having posts that actually go through a journey together, the power that one might have. Your visibility, if you think about this, you as an individual, as a thought leader, the product that you're selling, it doesn't just grow, it compounds, and your posts should be doing the same. So what does really all of that mean? What's a lot of this verbiage, what's this talk track really getting us to? Let's think about this for a minute from the science aspect, right? If we think about when our audience reads a post from us, there's some sort of feeling that they have, or they should. If we're creating post, excuse me, sorry. If I'm on a Mac, sorry about that. I am on a Mac. That was really odd. And it caused an interference because I just had a WhatsApp call. So if you think about, let's go back to the topic. If you think about from a science perspective, when we're engaging with our audience, most likely in a post, we want them to feel something. That feeling, hopefully in some way or another, is impacting, right? And it's impacting because it's got a strong point of view, or it's a moment that made them stop and think. It's a lesson that we're teaching them. Those linger. They tend to linger. If it's impactful, it tends to linger, right? When we create that post and then we come up with a new topic for our next post, it causes us sometimes to lose that feeling. If we, however, look at that post that we created with the hopes of resonating, that did actually land and resonate, if we build on that post, we now have created this opportunity for our audience, the person that it resonated with, to continue that feeling of whatever that feeling might have been that they had in your first post. Again, how does this really work? So let's talk about it maybe less sciencey, but more LinkedIn related. If you think about post sequencing, It's the ability to create a sequence of posts that starts the momentum, allows you to crescendo up and then bring it down to a close. Instead of writing an impactful story, a message, a lesson, and then posting something new and different because you've got your content buckets, it's less about that and more about really considering what worked and building on that. So let me give you some personal examples that I have done, and you can go back and search through my posts. But what I tend to do when I write regularly, when I post regularly, is that I tend to pick a theme for the week or the month. I start and I build on that. So, especially when I've created videos. So, go back and look at my personal videos. What you'll find is I'll have a theme, like I'll pick the topic. So, I think one time in particular, it was the impact of or leveraging an interest tracker, right? So, I talked about why an interest tracker is so valuable in one video. I talked about how to build an interest tracker in another. I talked about how to deliver that interest tracker. And then I even created a visual with just the interest tracker, right? So it was multiple posts. So I picked a theme. I hit it hard to create the momentum. And then I continued the story so that at the end, I then gave them something that they could actually physically use. Another sequence of posts was around DMs. I hate those crazy DMs where someone attempts to be personal. They attempt to personalize by finding something in your content or in your profile to reference. I also don't like the first pitches. So I don't like the premise of you trying to be friends with me by attempting to personalize, and I don't like the premise of just getting out there and pitch slapping me either, right? So I had a sequence of videos and other types of posts that walked you through how to actually engage with someone more effectively in the DMs. Now, why is this really important? Not only does it speak to this, you've given them something that resonates, you've left them with a feeling. Now, let's give you the ability to carry on that feeling. But it also allows you to parse out what could be this long-winded video or this long-winded text and allow you to splice it into different components that makes it easier for our audience to consume. So it does really allow you to hit two specific key benefits. One, again, is that it allows you to build this momentum and carry a story that gives you a lot of content. So it's less hard to come up with content when you've got a sequence. It allows you then to also leverage the emotion. So now I'm going to give you a third one because that was a new one. So it's allows you to give you more content. Sorry, we just had a WhatsApp call again. That doesn't happen hardly ever. But it allows you to build more content. So it gives you a little bit extra content and allows you to tell it in a story form. It also, though, allows you to give them little hard-hitting, punching type of information. So 2 minutes, something easier for them to consume, 2 minutes or less, rather than these long-winded stories, lessons, etc. And more importantly, it allows you to build on the emotion that you left them with, the energy that you left them with, and allows you to carry them through until you get to the end. So I gave you 3 reasons why. And it really then overall will establish more credibility, giving you both visibility and establishing more credibility with your audience. Because ultimately, our job on here on LinkedIn, if we're going to get a return on our investment, it is to build visibility, or it is to gain visibility and create credibility, right? Those are the two key factors that enable individuals to want to learn, to get to know you more, to want to do business with you, whether it's buying your product or your service, collaborating, or whatever means that might look like, right? It allows you as well to not, from a more internal perspective, from a more selfish perspective, it does allow you to reduce the possibility of burnout. As we all know, and I am the first one to tell you, I've experienced it more than once, where I went and posted every day, or sometimes even as much as 2 and 3 times a day. And there is this such thing called burnout. And it does happen. And burnout happens because you're posting too much, or because you are just struggling with your content. This reduces the need for you to have to run out of ideas. But it also gives you a really good rhythm that you can start setting, so you can determine what your real consistency is. Consistency doesn't mean you have to post every day. It just means that you need to, it could be once a week, it could be twice a week, it could be 3 times a week. It doesn't really matter, but it's just finding that consistency and then falling into a rhythm. You don't actually have to work as hard, and your audience will actually listen more. So, how do we do this? How do we really build traction? How do we build momentum and carry that? How do we carry that traction throughout the life cycle of that sequence, that posting sequence? Well, you can do that a few different ways. So you can go back and reference previous posts. So, for example, if you saw my Monday post about sales leadership, here's the follow up to that, right? You can use phrases, go back and look at your previous posts and find different ways or different things that, like, you look at the comments, what resonated with your audience about that post, and use that as a way, because that is momentum. So now start to leverage that to build traction, right? You can, start with a story. Then you can break it down with a carousel or a resource, right? Go back to this concept of an interest tracker that I used as an example. I told them, here's what an interest tracker is. Here's the value of the interest tracker. Here's how to actually leverage. Here's what information to gather as part of the interest tracker. Here's how to present the interest tracker. And then here's actually an example of an interest tracker that you can use. So it is layered content, right? And use the comments, use the questions, use the conversation that you've had as a way to leverage your building that content. So what I mean by that more specifically, so say your theme for the month, maybe your month is, let me reference what my theme might be for 1 month: how to gain visibility and credibility, right? So I'm going to spend less time in the weeds, but more just generalized topics on how to gain credibility and visibility, right? So in that instance, maybe I haven't planned out what the progression looks like, and I create a post that introduces the concept, and then I leverage the comments, the conversation, whether in the comments or those that happen in Zoom calls from that, or in DMs from that post. Use that as a way to kick that off if you don't have an idea of where you want to go with that. If you have an idea, go ahead and start figuring out what that looks like and layer your content. If you don't even know where to start, go back to previous posts and look at what resonated the most, what had the most engagement. How can you use that post? And you can reference that post. Hey, remember the post that I wrote on September 15th that had to do with this topic. This is the conversation that ensued because of that post. And then that can start to build on and start to create what that content for the remainder of that month should look like. So here's my question for you. Think about a post you've already done that got some attention. See if you can go to that post and reinvigorate the conversation. See if you can use that as a way to build a new post. So the way you can do that is find a comment that resonated, find a comment that added value, or think about the post and is there something that changed? Is there another example? And create that comment and see if you can start some conversation there again. And what I would challenge you to do is also at the same time, think about how well that post did and resonated, and what from that post can you now build a series of posts from. Because look, we tend to think, again, the reason for this topic is we seem to sparse out our content. We think about every day as a new day, which by the way, it should be, right? We tend to try to come up with new content. It can be cumbersome. It can cause burnout. And it seems like every day is a different topic because you've heard a million times, create content buckets. You should leverage, and you should, yes, leverage content buckets. They should be guides for you. But how do we build content that really does flow through a theme that allows you to create momentum and leverage the traction throughout, that gives you different pieces of gives you different opportunities to drop in different pieces of information all related to that. And there's a multitude of ways to do that. But how do we do that in a way that reduces our time, gives our audience more about who we are so it continues to build our credibility, and allows us to really leverage the traction that we got from a really good post that created an emotion for our buyers, our audience, etc. So I'm going to challenge you. My challenge to you this week is to look at your next post that you're going to write and consider what's lingering, what's something that did what theme, what content actually really resonated well, and use that to start to build from. Don't start from zero on a brand new post because it fits your content bucket for the day. Think about the post that did really well, or think about a post that maybe it did somewhat well, but you could have expanded on, and use that as a means to really start your post today with leveraging something that you've already been engaging about, and see how that goes. Just see how well it does. And then if it does well, start to build out a plan. How can I take this and turn this into multiple posts? What can I do to add value? Because every piece of content should be thoughtful and purposeful. How can I use this as a way to build value for my audience, my buyers, my prospects, my collaborators, etc.? And not make it seem so cumbersome to come up with new content and doesn't seem so isolated by different topics. That's my challenge to you. If you need help doing that, I want to be here for you. So let me know. Send me a DM. Let's talk it through, right? Go back and look at some of my videos, not my Blue TV episodes, but some of my videos. Go back and look and see what I've done. You can see that. Melanie says, like recycling idea from a well-performing post and turn it into a guide. That's a great idea. But it's not about just one post, right? It's about how can you take that idea and turn it into a guide, but then what if I take that guide before I create the guide and pull out just specific pieces that create momentum to get me to that guide? So think about that well-performing post. What can you extract from that and turn into a guide? So that'll be your end result. And then from that guide, what can I pick out as pieces of to drop or drip, as I would call that, drip in a multitude of different posts, so that at the end, then I give them the completed version of that. So you've got a post that kickstarts the thought. You go ahead and build it out, then take those pieces and start dripping little bits of it there, up to that point. And you can decide whether that's in 1, 2, 10 posts. It doesn't matter. And then at the end, you give them the guide. Does that help, Melanie? I'm hoping it did. There's always a delay with StreamYard and LinkedIn. So she said, yes, awesome. So it's like a chain of takeaways. Yes, it is like a chain of takeaways. It's like giving them, and even not just takeaways, it's really about hitting you honing in on your message. If I go back to this concept of the DMs, when you are creating a DM that truly is a bit more personalized, right? That is not a pitch slapping DM, that is done in an authentic way. There are ways to accomplish that. There are steps to get to there. First, you got to go find, look at that person's profile. You got to find, a post to comment on, or something within their profile that is valuable, that resonates with you, right? And then you've got to create this DM that reflects that, right? That makes it look like authentically you spend some time either reading their post or looking at their profile, and there are steps to get there. So it's about giving them not just takeaways, but really good nuggets of information that adds value to them and drips them and gets them to the place that now all of a sudden at the end of these 5 posts, they can now write a DM. So hopefully that makes better sense. I want to thank everyone for being here today. I want to remind you. Wait, let me go back and summarize. I don't know why I'm rushing. I still have some time, right? To summarize, our topic today was how do we build momentum and traction, leveraging our content and a post, whatever that post may be, so that we can start to drip out information to our buyers, our clients, our audience, collaborators, whomever it might be, right? How do we do it in a way so that it truly builds traction around this emotion that you leave them with a post, so that you're dripping information to them, thereby reducing the amount of effort that you have to both build that post and to find new content, but also delivers each of those pieces of information in a much more impactful way. When you break it down, you have the opportunity to do fast, concise, powerful punches rather than long-winded stories, right? And the way to do that is to really think about a theme or like a direction that you want to go, and plan out what those posts might look like. For those of you that are listening today, the way to accomplish that today is to go look at a post that resonated with your audience, or look at a comment that fostered a lot of conversation. And how do you turn that into your next post? Because you've created some emotion around that comment or post. And now you're creating a new post. And before you give them all the information, think about how you can take and just give them bits of information to get them then through this journey, so that you can drip different pieces of information and give them something impactful, not even through each post, but at the end as well. That does allow you to create more visibility and most certainly create additional credibility while not burning yourself out, and leveraging the emotion that you've started, that you've created, right? and then just building on it throughout. So that's your call to action for today. I hope that you found it super helpful. I want to thank you guys for having been here. Reminder, next week we will not have an episode as I will be traveling. Jenny, who was supposed to be on that episode, we will reschedule her. So I'm looking forward to that. So we do have a guest coming on soon between now and Christmas. We are, for those of you that were here last week through the chaos with the time change, we appreciate you having been out there. I know this week we don't have some of our usuals, so I'm hoping all is well with everyone because we had that wonky time change. And so I don't know how things are going today. So if you are here, I want to first thank the ones that were, or at least that engaged with us, such as Jose and Melanie. For those of you that were here and did not engage, just know we know you're out there and we appreciate you being there. For those that are coming back and watching it through Team Replay, leave us the hashtag Team Replay so that we know that you're out there. We're here every Wednesday with the exception of next week. We're here on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. Our goal here is to leave you with practical tips and tricks from those of us who have seen success here on LinkedIn so that you can take those tips and tricks, implement them right away, and see some of the same success that we have. Reminder for today's call to action, go look at a post or a comment that evoked a lot of conversation that resonated, understand the emotion, and use that as a way to build your next new post. And think about when you're building that, when you're creating that post, how can you build a journey for that, for your audience, your buyers, your prospects, etc. How can you build a journey for them so that you can start to drip in content, creating a flow of information, which establishes both visibility and credibility. Chella says hello. So hello, Chella. Good to see you. I want to thank everyone again, specifically our sponsors. We are super excited to have all things related to marketing is Market Me More, all things related to sales is Celebrators, and all things related to making an impact, Top Voices Unite. If you don't know those sponsors, go seek them out. Leave me a message in the DMs or in the comments if you're struggling with how to actually implement this thought, this concept. Let's have a conversation around it. I want to help you get there. I want to make it easier for you. And I want you to build more credibility and visibility. So thanks for being here today. I look forward to seeing you at our next episode where, of course, we will continue to give you practical tips and takeaways. Chella says she appreciates all of our practical tips. Thank you, Chella, for being out here. I want to wish everyone a happy hump day. And I look forward to seeing everyone here at our next episode. Thanks, everyone.